Welcome everyone. Are we all happy? Are we all engaged? Not very noisy. Why do you have to say that? You need to go to the toilet or? Okay, just checking. So Johnny has definitely set me up because there's nothing worse than doing a speaking slot at BT Tower. Excuse me when the water pours into the glass. I've lost my water somewhere around the room. Because, as you said, that whatever the content of your presentation is, the speaker's probably just rather hopeful that get onto the level 34 and upstairs, and hopefully the view's good, and then you'll forget the ramblings of someone standing on stage trying to connect a story together. But let me have a go. Nigel, myself, and Kevin actually hadn't discussed the content I was going to deliver here, and I'm very conscious that when people do come to events like this, for whatever motives you're here, it works when obviously, clearly, the content connects together. Sometimes it's not obvious where it connects, and that's, I guess, part of a good speaker, but it's also part of your job to ask the questions and challenge the speakers, to make sure that we make the connections where maybe they're not obvious to start with. So what I've done, my deck, is I've changed it a little bit from what I normally do, and I've tried to come out with something that is not different, because I'm setting myself up for a big fall there, aren't I? And I have a few people in my team, so if I'm looking lost, I might look for them for inspiration, but I know what they'll do. They'll all look like that and say, "You're on your own, mate. You can go with this one," because enabling brilliant customer service in the world of BTFS is a challenge for us, and I'll take you through some of that. But first of all, I should probably say who I am and what I do. So my name's Neil Edmond. I look after the day-to-day operations for BTFS across the UK and Ireland estate. It's largely a self-delivery organisation. We were formed 3.5 years ago when Monterey, which was the service provider, the outsourced service provider, was acquired, and BT created BTFS. And it was done at a point when the organisation was coming out of the doldrums, if you want to call it that. It recognised that it had scale. It's got around 8,000 properties or buildings in the UK and Ireland, if you now include the EE network, which has joined us. And with that scale, there comes an opportunity to actually deliver something different. Because whether or not the organisation, I think, back then could have articulated it was doing something different, for those of you who, dare I say, enjoy a reasonable customer experience from the BT product and services, you might actually recognise that the journey that the company is on is different to the one it was on a few years ago. It's no longer a landline and sort of telecoms organisation. It's about content now. It's about connecting people, connecting communities, connecting things together. And it's the backdrop of that I want to sort of cover off for this slide of this presentation. So, enabling brilliant customer service. It's one of those lucky opportunities to stand in front, as I said, because you're sitting in an organisation, in a building, when we go upstairs, that you can see what brilliant can really look like. So let me talk about the challenge and the opportunity that we've got. The challenge that we face in BTFS is something that is every FM organisation has in trying to deliver something that makes sense to the business that it serves or the client that it serves, but more importantly, something that they can relate to their end purpose or their end goal. Because if you don't do that, then you are just delivering a day-to-day service. You're not able to differentiate yourself. You've got something that doesn't actually make you come across as being different. The opportunity that I think that BTFS has started to explore and enjoy in the last 12 months in particular is leveraging some of the investment that it's made on its people and also the technology that we've now got in the business. Now, you might imagine with the pedigree that sits behind us with BT, and for those of you who do know, it is pretty much a technology-led organisation. We'll be hearing from Nigel Davis, who's the CIO, who I work in partnership within BT. There are some fantastic technological advancements in our business, but one of the things that BTFS did not enjoy when it was created 3.5 years ago was that technological advancement. We had people in our business, but what we lacked was the thing that brought them together. So part of this presentation is really about how we have used that, maximised that opportunity to make the most of the challenge that we've got. So if you look at our purpose, and this has been shamelessly stolen to some extent from material that you will actually see if you're inside the BT world. We have a pretty bold and ambitious purpose to put our customers first, extend our existing customer relationships and provide more importantly, more valued experiences. Now that's what BT actually says that it tries to do for itself as an organisation for its customers. What we've taken from that, from our perspective in BTFS, is to link that to what we do for our internal customers inside the business. These sort of things are pretty straightforward. You know, if I can have anyone in the business who's putting the customer first, growing and nurturing an existing customer relationship and doing something good on the back of that, then I would have done something pretty good as an FM organisation. Not unique, absolutely not unique. This bit here is where it becomes something slightly different. It's doing something a little bit unexpected, something that is more valued. It's something that is maybe not traditionally expected from what you do on a day-to-day basis. And that's the opportunity that I think we've begun to explore, and dare I say, and hopefully there'll be some evidence as I go through the deck, where I think we begin to sort of unlock a little bit of that potential and that opportunity in what has been and what is a pretty traditional FM service offering. As I see here, I've worked in a number of outsource and insource organisations over the last few years, and I would say there's nothing unique up there that any FM organisation would say they try to do. It's this bit here as to whether or not they can actually harness the opportunity they've got to actually go and do that. So just remind ourselves a little bit about what we do in the business. It's a snapshot of every single service line, broadly speaking, that we have within BTFS. And nothing in there that you probably wouldn't expect to see, serving, let's say, nearly 8,000 buildings or sites across the UK and Ireland. And I say now includes the retail network as well. But nothing different. All of these people do their day job, whether or not there are specific instructions that describe their day job, whether or not it's a reactive task, whether or not it's a scheduled task, or whether or not it's a planned task that sit there, whether or not it's driven by statutory requirements, whether or not it's just driven by what the customer expects of us. That's their day job. And back to the challenge, that's just my job and my leadership team's job, just to make sure that what we do each and every day just sort of brings that together. But that's what every single other FM organisation does. So let me ask a question. See how awake you are. Which side of the brain do you believe normal, traditional FM fits in? Hands, show of hands left? Yeah, I think I would agree with you. Do you think that's wrong? He's on the ball this morning, isn't he, eh? Yeah. I guess maybe what I should have said, in the context of the content of this particular presentation, a brilliant customer experience and customer service, do you think then that one side is better than the other? Tom?
It's a combination. You can't do one without the other really successfully in the world of FM. So I would say a healthy dollop of the left brain, but some good thinking from the right brain. A blend.
I wasn't going to be standing here to be contentious. I was just trying to draw an observation out from the audience, because I personally, just standing here as a human being running this business, I wholeheartedly agree that there are days when I come in and that whole day is going to be left-hand side of the brain, because it's the nature of the conversation that we're going to have, whether or not it's with our customers, whether or not it's with my boss, whether or not whoever it is in the organisation, even the people in the business. There's going to be, I have to talk about the logical, I have to talk about the analytical, I have to talk about the numbers, I have to talk about what you're there to do. And it's a very good point from bringing in the health and safety and the compliance aspect. I have to make sure that when there are rules and there are ways of doing work, that's what you follow, you have to do that. I guess the point I'm trying to make in where we have this opportunity that I think we've begun to unlock is we've become a little bit smarter at recognising when we need to get to the other side of the brain And most importantly, it's not about me getting on the other side of the brain, it's the people actually delivering the customer service at the coalface. That's where I need that movement between left and right-hand side of the brain. And I don't want to get super analytical with my people. I don't want to get to the point that I'm trying to convince them, because I think if it becomes too hard to figure out whether or not going between left and right, then you've got a challenge anyway. That's not the point I'm just trying to make. I'm just trying to say that I don't think there is a right or a wrong around it, but I think what we've begun to do as a business, we've begun to recognize that what we've got with our community of people and the technology that we use, we have now begun to unlock the movement into a different side of the brain, a different way of thinking about the way in which they do their work. We had a little bit of as there's a couple of people in the audience who, in the attendees will know, BTFS took a little bit of a detour into business development over a year and a half ago, because we firmly believe that with 8,000 buildings out there and sites, that we had the bragging rights and the opportunity to be able to say that in the marketplace, we were a service organisation that could rival others and we could actually win new business. We've actually got to the point now that with EE coming in, we've taken this decision to not do that. Our focus is ensuring that we can support the BT and EE merger and acquisition, make it sense, bring it together, and actually then do something that allows us to internalise and reflect a little bit more on this question about differentiating our service. Because I think what the last 12 months proved to us, it was bloody hard work to do something like this, when we didn't really have people understanding why what they do matters. And that's the piece that I think, as we've gone through some of our business development journeys, and I said there are people in the audience who we've had those conversations with, I think we were really challenged as to whether or not what we believe we were doing was actually something that was actually making that move into something that could be recognised as a brilliant customer service. Because at the end of the day, we do all the basics well, we spend our money wisely, we're safe, we're compliant, but the thing that actually differentiates us is whether or not we deliver something that can be recognised as a brilliant customer service. And honestly, standing here compared to my peers in other organisations, I couldn't actually sit there and say that it was differentiated as being different. So we had to give something, and we have to give something to them that matters. And the word I think that we have taken the opportunity to do something different with is purpose. And this is the bit that has really started to take a foothold now throughout the whole business. It's still got a long, long way to go, because some people get it, but others don't, about understanding the purpose that they have in the job that they do. And as I've already talked over, it's not about service levels, it's not about compliance, it's not about cost control, it's not about management systems. Nigel may be glaring at me if I say it's not about performance reporting, because if you don't know, we have a partnership with NJW about our business intelligence solution, and there is some fantastic progress we've been making in the way in which we actually present our performance information back to the business. But the purpose of this conversation, this chat, is not about this. These are prerequisites, they're the non-negotiables, they're the things that we have to have in place just to exist as a business. The thing that we need is we need that purpose. We need something that we can connect to our people working in the coalface that actually makes a difference. So, let me give you an example of where I think that's beginning to make a difference. Does anyone recognise what that is? Who said that? Very good. It's a teapot, of course, but did you hear what he said it was? A bird box. Who do you think put it there? No, it wasn't. It was one of our grounds maintenance technicians that dotted around the UK who look after the operational estate, look after the buildings that are out in the community in general. Do you think he was told to put it there? Why do you think he put it there? He does like birds. Do you think you can expand it more than that? Just think through the things that was probably going through his head. Come on, give me a few others. You're on the left-hand side of the brain. That's the one thing that it I'll say it wasn't, and the only reason I hesitate, because when I did have a conversation about this, he had an alternative, which was to go to B&Q with his purchase card and buy 20 wooden bird boxes for £7 each. So maybe there is a little bit of an efficiency and effectiveness piece in there around that. So it did feature in his decision making. But actually, you know what? It was more of the words, especially quirky. I like that. This was thinking differently. No part of his task, job description told him to do that. The thing that made him do that was the fact that he has a purpose. He understands what his role is in this organization in creating an environment, albeit an environment which is less about the workplace. This is about a building in a community that we look after. But it's a building in a community and a building that services the community, because it's a telephone exchange where people's calls go through, people's bank information goes through, people's just general lives go through that telephone exchange. He has a purpose for why he does that. That site allows us to think of the world that we deliver a service to BT differently, because it's in the local community. This is the same guy that has no longer cuts the grass. He's just replanted the whole exchange or the green area into meadow grass. Told the whole community around the site that this is now a biodiversity site. So watch the site in the spring and the autumn because of the way in which the site changes, and look at the impact that it has. For that little initiative alone, the RSPB are interested in talking to him simply because it's quirky, it's different. And my point is that the left-hand side of the brain would not have asked him to do that. It wouldn't have encouraged him to do that, because it just said, work safe, do your task, stay on task, demonstrate that, that you are effective, you're productive, you're moving around the sites that you're responsible for in a manner which is efficient for this business, and keep your customers informed. But it's more about keeping the site clean and safe. It's not about doing something different with the site. Now, my point is that's one person in a field force of 1,700 out there, all of them who have an opportunity with a bit of purpose to go and do something different, whether or not they're outside or whether or not they're inside the building. Now, final question, who do you think took the photograph? Him. Why did he take the photograph? Do you think he was just trying to sort of showcase what he was capable of? Do you think he was boasting? He was proud of it.
Encouraged more of it?
Definitely that. Because I'm not going to deny, in that field force, there are, dare I say, a few doubters that would sit there and actually they would take the proverbial out of him for doing that, because he's just, all he's trying to do is just share his photograph with his bosses just to make sure that he gets the next lift up the ladder, versus someone else who just can't be bothered to do it because it's not in their day job, it's not in their day description. But the thing, yeah, he took that on this, oh, he hasn't got it, I left it in my bag, our device, the mobile solution that we rolled out as a business. And we've put that out there because we want to connect our people together with a sense of purpose and for something that they're proud of and something that they recognise that makes a difference for the organisation they serve and the customer. But here, I mean, he wasn't really thinking about the BT customer working in the telephone exchange. He was more thinking about the end customer and the impression that now the community has of him as an individual of the site that he looks after. So what I'm getting to, if I multiply that by 1,700 individuals, said security officer here standing in one of 85 sites that we provide physical guarding to, these screenshots here, I know you can't read them, but they are the evidence, the examples of where this team of people who, the ones that are the topic that Richard Rowlands uses is in my team about pockets of brilliance. There are pockets of brilliance in this business where people doing their day job have taken the opportunity to talk more about what they do, to celebrate it, to share it, not just within BTFS, but within the wider organisation. And you can see most of these stories will accompany with a photograph, some evidence. It's a solution that links us not just within our own business, but within the wider BT community as well, so that we start to change and start to bring a process of change in the organisation. But it's all driven by this word purpose. Yeah? It's not because they're told to do it. None of these people have been told to do any of this. And for a business that's just delivering a day-to-day workplace service in an organisation that admittedly has buildings like this versus unmanned telephone exchanges in the Highlands and Islands, the one thing that connects them together is this, and how we can bring that information, that storytelling into one place, how the technology has allowed us to do that, and then not being too prescriptive of people about what I ask and expect of them to put on that. So here's another example, another grounds maintenance guy who's just sharing his biodiversity site. This example here is a security officer in Bristol who, on going through a leadership or a colleague development program, came back into the workplace and was just asked, okay, what can I do differently? What can I do for the customer in the buildings that I look after, the building I look after in central Bristol? And this is just his idea, taking forward the customer journey and how he ensures that people, when they visit the Bristol site, understand, A, what's happening in the building, but also what's happening in the local community around it. It takes a little bit of extra effort above his assignment instructions, what he does on a day-to-day job, to make sure that it makes sense for the people coming in there. But that's something that he's not instructed to do that. He's happily taken that on board because it's a purpose, and a purpose that he gets behind and he can understand. So I said that the investment that we've made in our people and our technology are the two opportunities, well, the single opportunity that we've started to really leverage and make the most of, because people see the benefit and the value for doing that, but they're not instructed to do it. And this is my closing slide, this same extract, or this same individual was the person who wrote that email to me when I was exchanging sort of conversations about, how did this get going? Why are we doing this? And I was struck by not just much the eloquence of it, but just the confidence by which someone who'd only just come out of the colleague development course, who said, immediately I can see something that I couldn't see before. And what we've done and what we're doing with this technology is connecting people together. It's something that relates very well to the BT purpose, which is very helpful for us, there's no denying it, because it gives us a relationship with our client, for want of a better word, that takes out some of the hard work to be able to sort of make that relevance, make that connection. But what the technology has allowed us to do is just to break down that geography that we're trying to deal with, and we're connecting the dots. The community that we've got within the organisation and how people talk together is starting to form. And my point, it's that we've started to notice is probably the most striking enabler of delivering a brilliant, or at least a better customer service than we've ever experienced in the 3 years that we've been together. But, as I said at the beginning, the real crux of sessions like this is to be challenged by you as to whether or not you think that's all horseshit, excuse my language, or whether or not you recognise that, and how we might take it further, because clearly technology has played a massive part in helping us getting there. But the most important thing is giving people that technology when they've got a sense of purpose behind it as well, and they can see the dots, and we've helped them connect that story together. But thank you. Do you have any questions? Can I just check, Nigel, you're not expecting us to, you don't want us to sit on stage after, do we, and just then get grilled? Yeah. Are there any questions?
Can we see if there are any questions for Neil after that fascinating introduction?
What do you do to encourage this creativity without being prescriptive about how people do it?
Well, probably, Kevin, each one of these stories, it's called Newsfeed. It's a SharePoint product that is a BT-wide product. Most of the managers, I would say it's not managers, it goes broader than that, are encouraged to be active on this each and every day. So people who have posted a story are followed. I mean, it's a little bit like that internal social media, but the encouragement, I think, just comes through the celebration, the thing that most organisations do a rubbish job on. It's not rewarding people, because you can't sustain any reward program around that. It's just actually giving people a pat on the back, a well done, an acknowledgement and recognition that's happened. I mean, when Paul Moore, Stepping Stones is the name of the program, you can see that it did this. the simple fact that I reached out to him and said, Paul, that's excellent. I didn't know you were doing that. And the fact I didn't know it, and I'm not stopping you doing it, I'm just encouraging you to push it on. Even if I know there's another security officer in another part of the UK that's going to do something slightly different, and I might have a problem in a few months' time when I'm trying to pull something together that might be a single solution, I'm sort of prepared to go with that, because a number of these things might not run the course. They might fall by the wayside or somewhere along the way. But to stifle that at that early stage would just be such a, I think such the wrong thing to do. And there are some people that don't quite get it. There are a few stories you possibly imagine that might get on here that you'd immediately want to take off. But generally speaking, I've been massively impressed by how quickly the business has got to grips with it and understands what sort of stories are relevant for here, and most importantly, why are they putting them on there. I mean, the grounds guys, especially around biodiversity, I've been shocked by how much that has uplifted them all to the point that they're doing something different. And they're getting a lot of recognition in the external community. BT's pushing a massive issue around customer experience at the moment. It recognises it's a premium product company and it needs to enhance its service experience. And with EE coming in, both organisations have a few challenges in that area. And we have the enviable pleasure of sitting on the operating committee twice a week to talk about what we're doing as a line of business, along with all other lines of business, on customer experience. And one of the things that the OC seems to have really picked up on is the outward face of a telephone exchange in the local community. For some communities, is a direct translation to how they interpret BT as a business. So if grounds maintenance guys and some of our fabric technicians and just general colleagues from around the business are there uplifting, painting the exchange, making sure that the grounds maintenance, especially in villages in bloom and local communities where you've got opinion formers around it, they uplift that. It has a surprisingly knock-on positive impact to how then that community comments on BTs, or certainly the perception of BT.
So on that theme, Neil, I mean, one of the challenges lots of corporates have is, how do you make your business attractive to your new workforce? What's your experience of this sort of engagement actually making a difference? For example, do you find graduates saying, I really like the idea of this, or is it something which just tends to happen inside the workforce? How does it translate to the outside world?
I'm not sure we're yet in the marketplace for graduates. I mean, I think we'd like to be. I mean, apprenticeships are where we have, I suppose, taken people out of the learning environment. And it's definitely word of mouth. I mean, this, as you know, our frontline guys who work in the facilities organisation will move around quite easily. It's an employment category where for 50p extra, especially in housekeeping or cleaning, people will move around quite a lot. So I think we do rely on the fact that there is a natural community that sits there within the people who are at the coalface, and just getting the message out in that community, whether or not this plays a part. I mean, we have one housekeeper who comes to mind immediately who completely IT illiterate, very uncomfortable with technology, was not interested in smartphones in the home environment whatsoever. As a direct result of being on stepping stones, is now actually being welcomed onto the BT community, where they put, it's a bit like Barclays Angels, but it's the equivalent the BT have for people that are encouraging both the elderly and also different spectrums of the community in general to embrace technology and not to be something to be afraid of. Those types of stories, they do eventually permeate out there, and what we see is we have more people who then are interested in what we're doing. But at the end of the day, we have to live the values that we've got. We've got to be respected as an employer, and we've got to demonstrate that we nurture and grow people in the business. But if you go and check BTFS on the internet, you will know and see straight away that we're not particularly good at that yet, at that customer-facing, that outward-facing piece. All of these efforts, I think, so much have been focused on the internal organisation, making sure that we've got that right, because my number one priority is to ensure that, especially now with, say, EE and BT, that we do something that makes that coming together of two very different and diverse organisations translate into something in the workplace that works for them. That's probably a little bit of a distraction or side route.
Okay, any more questions for Neil? Good. Neil, thanks very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.